This is Sunday, August 31st, 2014. Today, Roots Voices is at the 42nd annual Roots Picnic, Family Picnic, and we're here to collect stories of Northwest African Americans, community builders. And we are here today with one of our first interviews. Mr. Garry, would you please state your full name?
Yes, it's Ulester Garry, Sr.
Okay, thank you. I know just before we started recording this interview, we were talking about you and your relocation from Nevada to Seattle, Washington. Can you tell us a little about your relocating to Seattle and your career as a barber?
Okay. I'll start off with having been drafted into the Marine Corps at 18 years old in Arkansas for 2.5 years as the competent barber in my outfit. Then upon discharge from the Marine Corps, December of 1945, I came back home to Arkansas. Within 2 weeks, I moved to Las Vegas as a permanent resident. My only trade was barbering. I had no barber's license, even though I had experience. And upon supporting my wife and baby, I had to get a job.
Oh, yes.
There was one black-owned barbershop in the city of Las Vegas at that time.
One. That was 1945?
1946.
46.
January of 1946.
Okay.
So I had to wait a month before it was room enough to put another chair in there so I could go to work.
Okay. Was it a black barbershop?
Black barbershop.
Yeah.
The only one in Vegas on the west side.
Okay.
So anyhow, I went to work in March of 1946. Worked the whole year. And had the opportunity to meet and cut a lot of entertainers here.
Las Vegas.
All the guys coming out of California and back east were to entertain, would come out there, but for their recreation, for their haircuts, for their beauty work and all that, they had to go to the west side.
Okay.
Because that's the way the city was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to come to our barbershop if they want to get a haircut or a facial or whatever. And so I met a lot of those entertainers during those times, such as Sammy Davis Jr., Billy Smith, Pearl Bailey, all those different.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And of course, at the start of 1947, the city of Las Vegas issued a ordinance stating that anybody who practiced barbering must have a barber's license. I didn't have a license. There was no school in the state of Nevada.
That's unbelievable. Okay.
So that put me on the move. Then I got to find out where I can go to school at. And it took me 3 or 4 years. I went to Arizona, lived a year and a half, and came back to Nevada. But anyway, come 1951, I left the state of Nevada, came to Vancouver, Washington, to go to barber college. This is a 6-month course. I came to Tacoma for my examinations, passed in everything, and so to practice barbering on black folks like I wanted to do, I needed a bigger population, so I came to Seattle in February of 1952 and rented a barber chair right where the first bank is now on 5th and Jackson. There was an old hotel there then, and so I rented a barber chair in the shop.
Yeah.
I worked
How many
at
barbers were there in that shop?
4.
4.
But there were several barbershops within the area.
Okay.
But I worked there for 5 years. Then I went out and opened my own barbershop. at 23rd and Cherry, a little hole in the wall there.
23rd and Cherry has sure changed since what would that be, 1950?
1957.
1957.
Sure have. That little shop is still there though. So anyhow, me and a few of the other barbers in the city became concerned about no Barbers Union for black barbers in the city of Seattle. So me and one of the others took a petition and went out and polled all the barbers who might want to become unionized. We got a group together. I got a picture right here. We got a lawyer. We got an article of incorporations to organize a Barbers Union.
Okay, what year was that again?
That was 1956. And we organized what we call the Haven of Associated Barbers. It was an association, whereby this picture will show you where I brought a bunch of barbers together.
Oh.
They voted me in as the president.
Oh, that's wonderful. We'd like to be able to see those photographs. You can share those with us when you're
Yeah.
through.
Can you show us that picture?
I sure can. I hope to.
What year would that have been, Mr. Garry?
All that was in 1956.
Okay, when you were forming the union, Barbers Union.
1956.
How many barbers at that time?
Let me get to the.
Okay, so the first Barbers Union?
Can you hold it?
Yeah, they need you to hold that.
Can you just hold it in front of you and tell her the story about the picture?
Okay. This is an attorney, William Lockett, presenting me with an article of incorporation, which is in that bag over there.
Okay.
And these are all associated barbers here who chartered members of the association.
What stands out to me is there's a woman in that photo too. Who is that?
Her name was Margie. Margie, she works later on with Mr. Porter here at 23rd and Jackson, right where the coffee store is now. Starbucks coffee is, the very site where they worked.
So this was the beginning of your Barbers Union.
Yeah.
Right. That's fantastic. And again, 1956. And the other photograph on your lap of you cutting someone's hair, was that your barber shop?
That was at my barber shop.
Oh.
That's a picture on the wall of this other picture.
Can you direct
I had a
that?
barber shop at 1918 East Yesler, and it was named Gary's Deluxe Barber Parlor.
Gary's Deluxe Barber Parlor. What year was that?
That was in 1964.
1964. And so whose hair are you cutting there?
The person's hair is Jackie Robinson. All you young guys who've heard of him, who maybe never saw his picture, whatever. That's Jackie Robinson. Jackie made one visit to Seattle in his life.
Was it really?
He came here because he was a campaign director for Governor Nelson Rockefeller,
Okay, didn't know
who was running for president at that year.
Okay, right. And
And-
so he came to your shop?
He asked to be taken to the one of the most popular black barbers in the city. Coincidentally, I was lucky enough to be the one that they brought him to.
That's fantastic. On
What's
his
that?
one and only visit, he comes to see you to get a haircut.
My reputation had followed me from Las Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah, he came to me.
Fantastic. So you were telling me earlier too a story about when you were barbering out of your home.
Uh-huh.
and then the story of the students that would come to Coleman Elementary, that is now the Northwest African American Museum. Could you tell that story?
Okay, after this picture was taken, it was during the time that the natural hairstyles became popular.
Okay.
Business in the barbershops was slowed up. I phased out my barbershop up on the street and put it in a little house right over here on 1715 26 South. One chair.
One chair.
I had 4 chairs over there. I phased it out to 1 chair.
Okay.
During that time, I lived there for 18 years after that,
That's right off of Massachusetts Street.
just south.
Yeah.
But during that time, I put a little candy stand in my barbershop for the benefit of the children in the neighborhood who coincidentally was coming to Coleman School. And they began to buy so much candy, come lunchtime here at school, they wouldn't eat their lunch
Yeah. Okay.
because their pockets were still stuffed with candy.
Candy.
And coincidentally, Mr. Pruitt, who was the principal here then, a young black man, made a trip over to my barbershop and asked me for a conversation. So he pleaded with me to please stop catering candy to the children.
Well, did you stop altogether, or could they stop on the way home?
They would stop both going and coming to
And
school.
coming- oh.
But anyhow, I cooperated with him. I told him, yeah, I would discontinue because. But what I had done during that time was, I had a mirror set up, and I would allow the children to get their own candy and come to me and pay for it. But I could look through this mirror and tell if one was sticking something in his pocket. And sure enough, a kid who lived right next door to me was stealing.
You had your own loss prevention set up. And you
So
approached his parents?
I pulled him to the side one day and I told him what I discovered. And I said, you're barred out of here for a whole month. You can't come back and buy any candy.
Okay.
Until you decide that you're going to be fair like the rest of the children. It broke his heart. He was sending his brothers and sisters to buy candy, but after a month's time, he came to me and said, Mr. Garry, I'm going to do the right thing from here on.
And learn their lesson. So actually, you were helping to set those youngsters straight.
Well, that's what I thought. That's what I thought I was helping to make better citizens out of them. That was the intention of allowing them to make their own selections and pay for it.
And so you barbered there out of your home, or
Right.
it was just up here on Massachusetts, or off of Massachusetts? Right?
It was on Massachusetts.
Okay.
The little house is still there. I think the barber sign is still there.
Where's it?
1715 26 South. It's a hollow tree right in the front yard. If anybody want to check it out.
Yeah, I will.
But I did that for 18 years there.
And
Prior
then-
to,
And then what would you do at that point, after those 18 years? Were you ready to retire at that point?
no, I wasn't quite ready to retire. To tell you the truth about it, her mother, who was my first wife, we had separated and divorced during those years of my barbering.
Okay.
After 31 years, we remarried. And I had the license that shows 1018 32nd Avenue East.
Okay.
That's where she was living after we remarried. So I took my barber chair on her back porch.
So at 32nd Avenue East, that means that you were up in like the
It's still a residential area.
right Leshai, Madrona, right in that or not Madrona, but Leshai and
It's just before you go over the hill to Madison
Okay.
Park.
yeah.
It's right behind Broadmoor there, right next to it, right over the fence.
Okay. And then you just barbered there until you just decided you were done?
Yeah. Until 1990, I discontinued renewing my barber's license
How often do you have to renew a barber's license?
every year.
Oh, it's every year.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Okay, well that really gives us a sense or feel of what you were doing through the 1950s and into the 60s in Seattle. And do you have anything else to add about maybe what Seattle was like or living in Seattle at that time? It's changed so much since
It
then.
have changed a lot, but I had a great time barbering with the experience that I had with the other barbers in the city. As I say, they elected me the president of the association, and so anytime they had a question pertaining to barbering, they would always call me.
Yeah, and they should.
So I probably have more barbering information than any other person in the city of Seattle about black barbers.
That's amazing. Well, I know I mentioned to you earlier too that I hope that the Northwest African American Museum would put together an exhibition of barbers and the history of barbers in Seattle. And I hope that we'll contact you at some point within the next year and that you would talk to us about an exhibit here at the museum.
I certainly will. But I wanted to know if I could leave that article of incorporation
Yes. You
and a
can,
picture of this, like this group here, for the future of the history of the black barbers.
Yes, you can, and I would like to take our conversation maybe a step further on another day. I'd like to talk to you more and get more information about a potential exhibit or even a curriculum that talks about barbering here in Seattle, and then we can share it even broader beyond this video.
Anything that you would want to talk about barbering in Seattle during these last 50 years, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
And let me tell you one other thing. I don't know if these young guys know about Kenny Lombard. Anybody know Kenny Lombard? Huh?
No, what about Kenny?
Okay. I had a method of when I had a customer, his first boy child, I would always give them their first haircut. Coincidentally, Kenny Lombard, his father was in the army out here at Fort Lauderdale. He got married to a young lady named Royleen Washington. You might know Royleen. Her dad had a cleaning and pressing shop at 28th and Madison.
Okay.
Vincent Lombard married Royleen Washington, and they began to have children. Their first child was named Kenny.
Okay.
Right now, Kenny is in Magic Johnson's clan. Probably the, what's the guy that runs the figures? Accountant, probably the accountant. I say that because his dad was an accountant.
Okay.
His dad told me here a few years ago on his bed of having a stroke, he said, you know, Kenny's a millionaire now. I said, I heard that.
You heard that.
So having cut the kid's hair for free, now he's a millionaire.
And now he's a millionaire. Have you talked to Kenny?
Haven't, I'm gonna ask you guys help me
To
to
reach
get
out
in
to
touch with
Kenny.
him.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm gonna see what I can do.
yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Garry, for stopping and talking to us. And again, we really want to, or I want to be able to take this conversation a step further. So I'll be in touch with you soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bless your heart. Thank you. And that's my lovely daughter there. We call her anytime.